G'day everyone and welcome to a late edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by Crowcast. Apologies to everyone for the technical issues we had yesterday, courtesy of Microsoft. Unfortunate, but we got through them and here we are. So let's not stuff around any further. Let's get straight into it, shall we? Oh, hello, and welcome to an Easter Monday edition of the Weekend Wrap. As mentioned in the intro, apologies for the messing around yesterday, I should say. Can't be helped. But we're all here now. Well, I think we're all here now. Some of us are here now, particularly Macca. How you going, Mac?
No, pretty good, mate. It's been a long, drawn-out round this particular round, but we finally got to the end of it, and we finally got a show.
A roller coaster, just a roller coaster of emotions. We like to, just bring our listeners on a bit of a ride,
Oh, well, we'll give them a good one tonight.
Well, let's hope so. Nikki's not with us yet. I don't know where she is. She said she'd be here, but she's AWOL at this stage. But considering the first session is yours anyway, mate, then, we don't need to mess around any further. We can just get straight into it.
All right, mate. Well,
hang on.
Oops.
Oh, you're a funny man, Macca. Right. Okay, mate. We started off with the Lions, didn't we? Just squeaking over the line in the end by 7 points over the Magpies, 15-8-98 to 14-7-91. Pretty good game, this one.
It was an excellent game. Actually, it was very what I'd call a very watchable game. I thought Collingwood were very brave in defeat. Actually, Fiend. Brisbane had that little edge in class, but the interesting thing at the start was that Collingwood tagged Neil with Pendlebury.
Yes,
and it did work in the first quarter, no doubt about that. But Neil's too classy for that to keep going, and Pendlebury looked very tired at halftime when Neil ran him off his legs and he had 14 touches in that second quarter, and then Pendlebury wasn't doing that after halftime.
Yeah, but Neil's a fit bugger. He'll keep going.
Oh, he rarely comes off the ground. He comes off only for a very, very short burst. But really, I think Brisbane won at the second quarter when they kicked 6-2, and because after half time, Collingwood had a marginally winning half, but it was a close game and a good game, and as I said, very watchable. Lockie Neal, Zorko, Danaher for the Brisbanes, who I think are a possible challenger for the flag, and Crispin de Goey for the Collingwood.
Yes. Well, let's move on. We had the Bulldogs cleaning up North, 21-13, 139 to 11-5-71. The Dogs there by 68 points. And North, after showing a little bit of promise early, have really probably exposed where they're at the moment, I think.
Yep, Nicky's here, so good evening, Nicky.
G'day, Nick.
Hey,
Well, back to my report. Well, Good Friday is associated with crucifixion, and we watched two of them on Good Friday. Seriously, it was
mate, that's gold. Well done.
Yep, two worst games you could possibly put on. Well, I said Bulldogs and North Melbourne. Look, the game is over at quarter time. 7.5 goals up.
Yeah.
North Melbourne slogged away and they boxed away in the second and third quarters before the Dogs thought, we'll play a bit of footy again.
Yeah.
And they went on to, 68 points, I think it was. Norton and Waitman up to 4 there. They got 5 goals each, and but Smith running like a mad hare all around the ground and nobody tagging him whatsoever. I couldn't believe it. 43 disposals. And it's a very strong midfield when you throw him in and allow him to run around like an unregistered dog. It makes it even better for them.
Well, that's the thing. You have to beat the Bulldogs in the square, and it's a problem that we're going to have next week. But North didn't really address their playmakers at all in that game.
They didn't. And the Bulldogs' soft area is their defence. And if you can sort of half break even in the middle, you've got a bit of a chance. But Horn Francis, he had 18 disposals for North Melbourne. He's pretty reasonable. And Simpkin was probably their best player.
Yeah, that's probably a fair call. But disappointing for North. All right. Sydney, pardon me, predictably, I don't know why it says Swans by 11 points there. It was more like, bloody, what's that, 42, 63 points. Good on you. But, oops, God.
Well,
18, 13, 121 to 9, 4, 58.
Yeah, West Coast got a little bit of excuse. I mean, they've had a lot of COVID and close contacts and players injured, etc. But it was a massacre in the first half, a dead set crucifixion. And I mean, Sydney, 8 goals, 10 up at half time. And West Coast, they actually fought it out in the second half. And they had a lot of players who hadn't played a lot of footy who were out of touch. And they sort of found a little bit of touch as the game went on. And, they might improve on that. They've had a horrible run. I mean, their premier didn't help by not allowing COVID in the state. And all the other states have had COVID and masses of it. And they're starting to get it now, and which puts them at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
But
from a pure business point of view, it's a write-off of a season, and a season that you want to be catching up with crowds and all the rest of it, and their crowd's going to drop off with this sort of effort. And it, as you say, it's not really something of their making, but they're going to suffer, West Coast, as a result.
Oh, very, very much so. And for Sydney, Mills and Heaney, they were excellent for Sydney. Laddams, he actually rucked very, very well, and Port Adelaide would certainly like him back now. I mean, they got pick 12 for him, which I think they used to pick up Josh Sinn. But Laddams played very well in ruck. And for West Coast, the two, they just, as I said, not much to mention there.
No. St Kilda 13,987 over the Suns 9,761, 26 points there, and St Kilda just putting that one in the bank, more or less, really.
Yeah, a fairly even first half, and I thought that Gold Coast made a little bit of a fist of the first half, and then but Steele, Crouch, and Sinclair were dominating the midfield, and in the second half. Just too much for Gold Coast to withstand. I thought Tuke Miller was outstanding for Gold Coast for 32 disposals. And, I mean, you've got to take your hat off to that guy. He plays in a side that usually loses, but he gives 110% if that's possible to do that. Probably not mathematically. But I did get a little bit of a laugh. Rory Atkins came on, got a couple of touches. To think that we actually got a good draft pick for him.
Yeah.
He is a dead set flop, absolute flop. Talking about flops, Isaac Rankin, 7 disposals for 1 goal and doesn't do much at all. I certainly wouldn't be chasing him at the end of the year. Not for me.
Not as it's going at the moment, mate. It's you just wonder where all that talent went.
Well, I think he after his first year. They put that extension of a contract for another couple of years on top. And I think he went on about $500,000 a year. And he's a kid that's just happy to sit there and get $500,000 a year and do very little for it. That's what it looks like.
Do you think it's that?
Well, he used to be like a player that was interested before that, certainly in his first year, but he's done nothing since his first year.
No, well, I guess not. But... yeah, I don't know. I think there's more to it, Macca. I really do.
Well, there could be, but I'm only talking about what I see on the surface, and what I see is something I don't like.
Yeah. Um, you know, I don't know where to go with it, really.
Fair enough. We'll move on then.
It's just one of those things. He's got so much talent. We all know he's got so much talent, but I think whether it's a destination thing or whatever, you know, we've got a nice little spammer in chat at the moment. So you talk about the Melbourne Demons beating the Giants by a fair bit, and I'll get rid of this idiot.
Well, actually, it was a spanking by the Premiers, who very much look like they will be the Premiers again this year. But just on current form, they do look a class above everybody else. A couple of goals in it at half time, but they just went in overdrive in the third quarter, and then just made a mockery of the game, really. Gorm was absolutely magnificent and rucking forward. You'd love to have her. I look at O'Brien and I look at Gordon and I think, Jesus, they're not the same animal, are they? I mean, Gordon is absolutely outstanding. But he's very well supported too by, they've got Luke Jackson as their backup ruck, and you'd be happy to have him as your first ruck. He's a beauty. And Oliver and Petrarca in the middle, they're very good. They just cruised along to 11-goal win, and I just can't see anybody beating him for the flag, unless they tend to fade a little bit, get overconfident.
It's a long season, Macca. It's a long season.
It is, but I just think they're cruising at the moment. They still look too good.
Yeah. Look, I don't think there's a few teams that aren't at their best yet. I think Brisbane have got a little way to go. I think the Bulldogs are just starting to hit their straps. I think there's a couple of other teams there still that can challenge. I wouldn't even write off Sydney at this stage as a challenger, but certainly Melbourne have just picked up where they left off, and you can't begrudge them favouritism at the moment. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No, it's a long season, and you've also got what's going to happen if they do get injuries, like other teams have gotten injuries and had to cope with. I thought there was a really nice breakdown on the couch tonight, where they actually showed like basically the way that Melbourne will actually structure up and how hard their midfield runs to get in line with where the ball is. So they've always got an outlet kick and how they spread and open up the ground. And it's exactly the same game plan they had last year. Our team was able to actually counter that for a while. But it also showed how poor GWS's midfield is, that they just jog along and don't run hard both ways.
We have said forever and a day that GWS are a team that lack heart, lack spirit.
Yep.
And they went as far as they were going to go based on pure talent. But they've always been found wanting in crunch games. Always.
Absolutely fine.
And the media is still talking up about how Leon Cameron's not really under the pump and that they're possibly going to give him another extension. But he's the one who's put it on hold. I'm sorry, who's running that club?
He'll be dead set gone at the end of the year. No doubt about that.
Well,
dead set gone.
It's a simple case of the AFL have got to protect their investment, and if they don't think that Cameron can make them competitive and contenders, which, God, how many bloody concessions do they want, then, they'll replace him. And there'll be a few people around. Al Clarkson, the obvious one, although I don't know whether he'd take it. There's always Paul Roos in the wings. There's Ross Lyon. There's a few coaches around with credentials. And, I don't think... Anyway, let's move on. Carlton. Someone in the chat pointed out my T-shirt is black and white and says Everlast, which is very appropriate at the moment for the pair. Carlton unintended there, but I'll take it. Carlton 14-10-94, hanging on by the skin of their teeth over a fast finishing Port 13-13-91, 3 points. The Power 0-5.
Well, certainly a very game of two halves. Carlton had no Patrick Cripps, which has been their driving force in the middle. Port had no Ollie Wines, but no Lycett, which was a pretty important factor.
He's been sticking it up anyway, mate.
Well, he has actually, and he's I think his success in Hayes so unfit for a guy that's supposed to be playing at AFL level. The guy was puffed out after he ran 100 metres.
Yeah.
Shocking.
That's why they're playing him.
And Aaliyah back, and he was very ordinary. But Port were absolutely pathetic in the first half. Absolutely pathetic.
I was shocked how bad Aaliyah was. He got absolutely towed up by McKay.
Well, he did, and I mean, Curnow and McKay in the forward line. They were. That's a very, very handy pair to have up there. They can both take strong marks. They can both kick long goals, and in the first half, I just, I was dreaming that this could be a real big thrashing of Port, because make all of Adelaide happy. But after half time, for Port's credit, they did fight back, and I think they kicked 6 goals to 1 in the third quarter, and then they gave us a bit of a fright in the last quarter. But thank God, in the end, Carlton limped to the line and got there. But gee, they were just about knocked out, weren't they? And
Mac. They just panicked. They're still a relatively young team, Carlton, in terms of knowing how to win. And I think when Port kicked it up a notch, I think Carlton just panicked a bit. That's something that Voss can address, I think. I don't think it was Port running over the top of them from a fitness perspective. I think it was purely they went into panic mode. They made some fundamental errors. They didn't structure up properly. They didn't try to change the tempo of the game. And Port just came at them. And Port were desperate because they certainly didn't want to go zip 5. And when they got a sniff, what momentum's like. So Carlton made a few errors. Voss probably made a couple of tactical errors or didn't communicate well enough with his players on the field. But thank God they hung on.
I think you summed up very, very well, because they weren't doing the same thing they were doing in the first half. And as you said, I think they did panic, and they had a bit of pressure on them, and there were so many wrong options being chosen, which backfired on them as well. For Port, I thought Butters was outstanding, and Rosie played his best game of the year. Sam Powell-Pepper got a kick, and Robbie Gray always gets a goal or two. Burton was outstanding in the back lines. But Kenny said after the game that they can still make the finals. Well, Kenny, you're a bit of a knob. I really don't. First of all, you got told us they were going to win the bloody grand final this year, and Koshy's there saying, yeah, we will. Every year it's the same old bullshit. Now you're talking about making the final. 0-5, you just might make the finals, but it's scrambling. But there's no flag there.
It's pretty funny. You know what? You heard what he said. He said, whenever it was, whatever year, we started 5-zip, and then we lost the next 5, and we still made finals. Well, the thing is, they'd already banked 5 wins. The difference this time is that they haven't banked any wins yet. It's easy to recover from a 5-game losing streak when you're already 5 up.
Yeah, I was going to make that same point, Finn, because it's very, very relevant. This game, they haven't won one bloody game yet, and it's just for curiosity. Who's the biggest soft cock in Port Adelaide? Is it Motlop? Is it Finlayson? Or is it Marshall? They are so soft.
I would say Motlop simply because of his experience. Marshall's a twig. Finlayson's just not a great player. Emergency glass kind of player. But Motlop's an experienced player, played in premiership teams. He's better. He should be better than that.
I'm going for Marshall. One thing I would say is Connor Rosie. I thought he turned back the clock and he had a very good first year.
It's not a very long clock. Why are we talking so much about Port? Let's move on. So the Dockers 16-11-107 beat Essendon 8-11-59 by 48 points. Freo just starting to show their credentials, I think, Mac.
Sitting second on the ladder at the moment, mate. an 8-goal win by Freo over Essendon sort of said a lot about Freo, but made me feel very irritated about our loss to Essendon. And I mean, how the hell did we get beaten by that lot?
Oh no, mate! You know, footy. Footy's one on the day, it's matchups. It's we probably didn't have the same level of I don't know. Look, it's especially close games. They're just one on the day. Freo played very, very well. I don't think you should underplay that. Don't forget Freo beat us comfortably as well. So we're probably on a par with Essendon.
Freo beat us by a point.
Oh, that's right. It was Collingwood that beat us comfortably, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyhow, close game up to half time, and Freo ran away with it after half time and won by 8 goals. Chapman had a full field day at full forward, kicking 7. Bayshaw's continuing strong form on the ball, and they really are a side on the rise. And I reckon they'll play finals this year, Fiend.
They'll play finals. Have they got enough depth in that squad yet? I'm not sure.
Not to go all the way, but they've got a good mix of experience and youth at the moment. And yeah, I just think they will make the finals. Essendon, well, there's a bit of talk. The coaches are in a little bit of trouble there if they don't get Moving. And Benny Rutley
That's his second season.
I know, but you know what they're like in Victoria, mate. They're vicious.
Well, it depends who you are, I think. Anyway.
Well, yeah, it's true. He's a South Australian. That makes it worse for him.
Yeah. Well, Truck might go and resurrect Port if Essendon beat him out. Anyway. And then today, the traditional Easter Monday clash between Geelong and Hawthorne, and happily it was Hawthorne. 14-8-92, getting up over Geelong 11-14-80, 12 points in the end, despite the efforts, again, of the umpires in that game. And I know we had a right in ours, but if you want to talk about a team that perennially gets a run from the umpires at crucial moments, it's Geelong.
Me too. No doubt about that thing. But Hawthorne, they're a funny side. When they come out with all guns firing at the beginning of a game, they can keep going for the whole game. And you could tell today that it was going to be a very good contested game, and the weather helped to make it contested because it was a little bit slippery. So therefore, the team that went in the hardest and prepared to work to get the ball, etc., etc. I thought Hawthorne outworked Geelong, and Joe Newcomb, who irritates me. He was another guy that's taken one of these mid-season draft or pre-season drafts.
Yeah, he got taken out of Box Hill, didn't he?
Yep, we take Benny Davis and they take Joe Newcomb.
No. We took Paddy Parnell.
I'm being vicious just to use that as an excuse.
No, but you're being silly. You're being silly. Like, we're a serious show, Macca.
I know, but I am annoyed at some of our takings, that's all.
When? Nobody told me.
What?
Keep going, Mac.
What, Nicky?
Keep going, Mac.
Okay. Anyhow. Coming back to the game, I thought that overall Hawthorne just outworked Geelong, and not much more to say than that, really. I mean, as you say, I thought the umpires gave Geelong a pretty good run, and one stage I thought that was going to work because Geelong did actually hit the front, but the Hawks kept going and just too good.
Look, the thing that's got to happen is that the umpires have got to actually look at tape and understand what Tommy Hawkins does. Right? Because
pushing the back all the time, mate.
He continually fools them, and I'm not sure whether the umpires actually look at players, but if they don't, they should, because that was ridiculous. And we're starting to lose count of the amount of times that Tommy Hawkins gets a free at crucial moments by sucking umpires in, and it was worse than the bloody Nankervis one against Tex. He fair did a swan dive, Tom Hawkins. He's done the same against Brisbane. He's done the same against us in the past. And surely the umpires need to look at players that do this and understand when they're on the ground that it's likely that a bloke's going to dive.
That was a dead set dive. But just summing up, I thought Newcombe and Sicily were outstanding for the Hawks, and Stewart and Selwood for Geelong.
Yeah, very good. All right, let's have a look at the ladder, and we actually have a ladder that's complete. For the round, we have Melbourne on top, game clear on 20 points. We have Freo, Brisbane, St Kilda, Sydney and Carlton all on 4 wins. Geelong and Hawthorne in the 8 with 3 wins. Collingwood, Western Bulldogs, Richmond, Gold Coast, and Adelaide on 2 wins. Giants, Essendon, West Coast and North on 1 win. And the Power, the strongest team in the competition, holding everyone else up with 0 wins and a shitty percentage. So they might break their drought next week against West Coast Eagles. But I'd love to see the Eagles get out. Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, well, I think the West Coast will play better than they did last week because their second half, as I said, was their strongest half, and they had several players coming back who hadn't played for several weeks or hadn't really played at all, probably for the season.
Yeah.
And there were 4 of them, and they're all good players, and they all started to find a bit of form. I would love them. Put Port down.
It would be funny. Anyway, as everyone's saying in the chat, let's talk about the Crows. And I must say thanks to everyone for joining us on a Monday night in Discord and on YouTube after we got rid of the riff-raff on YouTube. Some people must have more time on their hands than I do because who could be bothered trolling another team's bloody podcast. But anyway, but yeah, if you want to get around us on Patreon, go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. We appreciate every bit of assistance. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. We're trying to get that number up so that we can give you some more community content on YouTube. So spread the word. Now, Mac, Crows 15-11-101. Richmond 12-10-82. Crows 19 points. Probably the best team effort, I think, Macca and Nicky, that we've put on for quite a while, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I was actually looking through each and every player's contribution towards the game, and there's probably only 1 or 2 that you might have some sort of criticism about, but I thought it was our best team effort for the event. It's a very good statement.
Nick, how'd you say it?
Well, the same as that, and the criticism will just be for a couple of moments, but would be contrasted with some positives that they did for the rest of the game. It was very much a massive team effort, and I worried about the ends and certain people that we kind of wanted to get dropped didn't, but the way they structured the team up, I think it actually worked very well against Richmond. And it was a case of, this is what we saw Nick's in the first year, where he would pick teams to counter who we were playing. And I liked that. And we hadn't seen it for a while. And I hope it's a turning point.
I didn't see selection necessarily like that, but I think it worked out. We certainly played a certain way, which I'm happy to talk about in a sec. But yeah, I don't know whether it was a team to beat Richmond necessarily, but that's okay. Let's just talk quickly about selection then, shall we? Because we only made one forced change, Nicky, and that was Harry Schomburg. So there wasn't a lot of change there. Yellow.
No, that's... Yep. Yeah, and that's why I said I wasn't happy with some of the changes, but, some of the other ones...
You said we picked a team to beat Richmond. I don't know whether that's necessarily the case.
No, I can see that I'm not saying overall. I should have made that be clear. But for me, it was McAdam. I think putting McAdam in, which he didn't really have an excellent game against North. He wasn't a standout, but I think he was very much in there to really disrupt their defence.
Well, as I mentioned, Sandberry came in, which I was very happy about. Unfortunately, he came in for Harry Schoenberg, which I was very salty about. Hinge out injured, and they decided not to go light for light with Mitch, and they actually played Braden Cook a little bit behind the ball to counter that at times, which I thought was an interesting and successful move.
It was.
With Mitch out, and James Rowe was the sub. When I saw he'd been dropped, I thought he was crook, but he obviously had 12 minutes of footy in him at least. So, look, I think my biggest problem was dropping Shuey. After a decent second half against Port, they shoved him out in no man's land again when Sloaney came back in last week, and he, as a result, struggled to have an impact, and then they dropped him. And people say, it wasn't very good in the SANFL, but SANFL is a different level of footy when you've been playing AFL. It's not as structured. It's a bit scrambly, and I reckon it takes blokes a couple of weeks to get into that type of football again. And I'm not surprised we didn't do well.
I actually watched the SNFL. Did you?
No, I didn't watch it.
So the first half, it was very structured. It was very much our AFL game plan, and then they all got tired, and Glenelg got a very good side. And they ran over. He was absolute poo in that first half, considering how structured up we were. Harry, he's still trying too hard. I think that's just the way it looks. And his disposal was still... So I'm not quite sure what's going on with him.
Oh, it's a young player. What's this, his third year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third year, second year in terms of, being in the spotlight. He's got some deficiencies. I don't think his disposal has been seen as a deficiency in the past. In fact, we've commented a lot of times how he's very good at putting blokes into space, particularly by hand. But he looks a little bit hurried at the moment. Nick, you might be right. He might be trying a little hard. It might have just got into his head a bit. So, maybe it's not a bad thing that he has a few weeks in the twos. I don't know. But I'm not worried about Harry at all.
No, in the long term, I think he's going to be a very good mid for us. He just went going through a passage where his usage of the ball was pretty terrible, and I think that's probably the reason that why he found himself in the twos. And from what I heard, that he didn't he didn't use the ball very well again. I can't. So that's fair enough. By Nick's, I think Nick's is saying there's a certain standard we must have, and look, you were playing reasonably well getting the ball, but he's giving it straight back to them. That's no good. So,
want to apply that across the board, though, wouldn't he?
Beg pardon?
He'd want to apply that across the board, though, if he wants to be fair about it. Chase Jones is missing a lot of targets at the moment. Anyway, look, I don't want to get caught up in it. Harry got dropped, rightly or wrongly. I thought Berry had a good game. Shay McAdam made an impact. So all up, it wasn't terrible. Billy Frampton survived at centre-half back. We'll talk about him. But overall, it was probably a relatively predictable selection, I guess. Were you surprised by anything, Macca or Nicky?
No, not at all.
I did think we might have seen the return of Murray for Hinge. But as you said, the way that he structured up and put in Cook a bit more behind the ball, and everything else, and I thought our defence actually played really well.
Yeah, I thought that no, not Murray coming at all, Nick, because of the fact that with Sloan moving out the middle, there's always going to be other players moving back into that backline situation, more mobile players. So, and I think Cook was there at times and he did very well. I thought Sloan was out there for moments and he was doing well as well. So I thought that Nick's actually coached very well in the terms of his usage of the players. So, overall, I thought we played pretty well. and the usage of the players was good, and the selection was pretty good. But
the only other one, sorry, Mac, the only other one I thought might have been a sniff is Kieran Strawn, given the start to the season Riley O'Brien's had. O'Brien probably redeemed himself in the second half, but geez, he was stinky in the first half. But I thought Kieran Strawn might have had a dip. We'll talk about individuals in a minute, anyway.
Yeah, but that's, I think, well, I was asked before, I said I thought mostly everybody played well. Somebody said, who didn't? And I said, well, I didn't think Rob did. He definitely got beaten by Nankervis.
He played better in the second half.
He did, but
in the second half. Started taking some marks in the second half.
Yeah, but he's not playing well.
Oh no. All right, let's look at some head-to-head stats, shall we? Let me just. Where are we, Mac? Some head-to-head stats. Alrighty. It was a reasonably, apart from free kicks, it was a funny old stats game. We were fairly even in we were 20 up on disposals, I guess, mostly in the kicking department. That didn't really show up to me in the game. Inside 50s were uneven, 51 to 61 in their favour. We went 50% for basically the whole match in terms of our scoring from inside 50, which was excellent. Both teams had a high disposal efficiency, which was good given the conditions were good. Free kicks. Now, I've watched this game twice, Nicky and Macca, and the second time I watched it, I tried to be as unbiased as I possibly could be. And I didn't notice... I didn't notice many free kicks that we got that weren't there. I did notice some free kicks that Richmond could have got that didn't.
I think that's a very good summary of it, because there's probably maybe one or two that I thought we were a little bit fortunate to get. There's 33 of them, and I'm saying that probably 31 were probably okay. But they got 13 and probably missed out on about half a dozen or so.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair number.
Yeah.
And with some of those, the ones that people might think they're a bit ticky touch wood that went our way, they were actually consistent because a lot of those they were then ticky touch wood for Richmond and they were paid for Richmond. But you're right, there were some that were very much missed, but overall they were fairly consistent.
Yeah, it was a funny one. I like I said, I tried to be objective the second time I watched it, just to see, because obviously Richmond were up in arms and all the Hardwick was up in arms after the game and blah blah blah. But anyway,
but that's the way. I mean, that's the way his team were playing. I mean, those ducking ones in, they normally don't pay them. They normally don't pay them, but that is actually what that rule is brought in for, is to stop those players propelling their head forward to do themselves an injury.
Yeah.
And I was actually happy they were paying him.
Yeah. There was a couple of times, more than a couple of times, where they dropped into a tackle. And two things I noticed. One, as you rightly point out, the umpires officiated that quite well. But two, I noticed that our lads were adapting to that with the way that they were tackling very well as well. They have been drilled, in my opinion, for probably the first time in ages, about keeping their tackles low. Even Himmelberg, I forget the player that tried to duck into him or just drop into him, but Berg kept his arms low, which is not easy for a big fella. And it's obvious to me that they've been, whether it was just in preparation for Richmond or whether it's part of their training at the moment, they are tackling very well at the moment. Not many high frees given away.
I agree with you, Fane.
All right, stoppages. Hit-outs 29 to 41. As we mentioned, Riley got towed up particularly early. Clearances were even 35 to 36, although they beat us in the middle and we beat them around the ground, which is probably what you'd expect given the relative form of both midfields at the moment, although ours looked a little bit more balanced with Sloaney not attending. Pardon me, contested posies, we were up by about 15. Uncontested was fairly even. We didn't turn it over quite as much as they did. Marks were even. Marks inside 50 were even. Contested marks were even. Tackles were relatively even. Tackles inside C. So it was a fairly even game. I think the difference in the game, really, because both teams worked very hard, for the majority of the game, both teams worked very, very hard. I think the difference was simply our efficiency up forward.
Yeah, that's probably true. It is probably true because I thought that our backline worked very, very hard. I thought they were just a little bit looser early in the piece, and they just got tighter and tighter and tighter. I thought the backlines did a good job. And therefore, reverse also holds that when we get the ball down into our forward lines and we scored, and that's one of the reasons, obviously, why we won.
Nick?
We had as PJ Crow said, difference was Tex. He created a forward line, not just himself, but he creates the whole forward line. And that Richmond didn't have the benefit of that.
Nick?
Yeah, no, I actually agree with PJ. It was very much, Tex just giving that leadership to the young forwards, and you actually listen to those commentators talking about how we were positioning up forward and the spacing and it was that kind of movement. I thought it was very good that we did keep Sloan out of the midfield, so that even though I was kind of like, I was looking at it going, I really liked that Berry was in there, but it was still a slow midfield. But then with Berry, he's a fast thinker in terms of, he will get rid of that ball quickly and he will get rid of it efficiently. So I thought that was quite good, and I really liked the way we just worked it out of defence as well. And I mean, I think a brilliant case in point of how we were thinking well on the field was when Sloan got injured in that last quarter, and then we did that kick backwards, and of course the crowd goes nuts and goes off, and I'm just looking at the field going, that's bloody smart, because we're a player down. They've spotted that. They know we're not going to get him off quickly. Richmond like to fast move it. Instead, what that did was we opened up the ground some more, gave us a bit more space to keep possession of the ball so we didn't turn it over. They were very controlled kicks from that point until we got Sloan close enough to off the ground, and then they went more towards a contest. I actually thought it was in a way, like a little bit of a great thinking game from our team, which we haven't seen for a while. There were still moments of panic and everything else, and they got a bit of a run on. But I did like the way that we would wrestle the control back, and we then got it going our way. So it was a very pleasant game to be at. I thought we were going to get absolutely smashed, and I was very pleased it didn't happen.
Well, yeah, I agree with you saying we were very controlled. Sorry, Fiend, but
no, go on.
I thought in the back lines, I thought that Dawson helped control with Smith, can help control the back line.
Yeah, really liked Smith's game.
Yep, and Tex up forward, just the way his presence is, he just helps create the opportunities for everybody else as well by being in the right place, right time, whether it's him or making way up for others. And the same in reverse. I thought that, as you said, that the back line's got tighter and tighter, Nicky, and that was Smith and Dawson actually leading the way there.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I really like. First of all, when you're an up-and-coming team, you've got a new squad, you want to build a brand. A lot of the successful teams have got a brand, that you know what they're going to bring every week. And I think what this squad is starting to do is build a brand, and that brand is just working their guts out. You can see, whether it's real or not, I just feel like Burgess has already had an impact in terms of their ability to work, their fitness. They're very fit. I do wonder whether they were a bit flat the first couple of games of the season, Nicky and Macca, as a result of Burgess getting a few miles into their legs, because they certainly are running on top of the ground right now. So
Yep.
I like the fact that
Richmond.
they're building. Sorry.
Yeah, just on that, Richmond looked really tired towards the end of the third quarter, and those misses on goal in the fourth that they normally kick, I actually thought might have been to do with that we ran them into the ground.
Could have been. Well, we certainly didn't stop running, and that's the brand that we're building. We're building a brand as a team that'll never go away, that will always be in your face, because the only way you're going to beat Richmond is to apply frontal pressure to them. You can't zone off against Richmond; they will destroy you, and that's where I thought we might struggle because of our slowish midfield. But and that leads me to my second point, and I don't know whether you guys noticed it, Nick. You might have noticed it at the game, but what we're doing now with, or what we did in this game, and I've noticed it, I forget the other game, that maybe against Essendon, it's the most open and the most free that I've seen our forward line be for quite a while. And the reason for that is that we're pushing our half forwards up high to basically become extra midfielders through the middle half of the ground, or the middle third of the ground. The amount of times that we had extra players in the contest between the arcs, and the forward 50 had 2, maybe 3 players in it. Sometimes we had Tex isolated. Sometimes it was Tex, Himmelberg, and a small. But the amount of... I reckon Nick's is... the way that he's selecting the team at the moment, or the way he's playing the team at the moment, suits who's being selected. And with Lockie Murphy in the team, and Josh Rochelle being able to play midfield minutes, etc., I just feel like we're compressing the middle of the ground, and it certainly worked against Richmond, and it offset our slow midfield because we had extra numbers through there for a lot of the time. Did you guys notice that?
Yep, I can't disagree with the word you said there, Fiend. We would definitely had that whole half forward line just pushed right up, and that which meant that when we did, sometimes we actually had to hold the ball up a little bit, because we had mostly the forward line to come up a little bit, the last line to come up a little bit too high as well. But we definitely crowded when we're coming out of defence where it was getting like very tight, and that we definitely crowded it with our half forward line coming up as well.
Yeah. And that has did you notice that, Nicky? The open forward line?
Yes. Oh, very much so.
It's not like us at all. It hasn't been like us for a while to have an open forward line like that.
And the good thing was that when they did crowd it, we kind of slowed it up, and we've tried to switch it across and open it up and drag them out a bit more, and then go back in. Again, that thinking game that was actually happening on the field.
It has a bit of an impact, and someone noticed it on
especially
the chat.
That first quarter.
Sorry, Nick, I think you dropped out and I spoke over the top of you. A couple of things that it leads to. First of all, a lot of our smalls, as someone pointed out in the chat, they're running goalwards when they're hitting the packs because they're behind the ball running forwards. Ned McHenry did it a couple of times really, really well. The other thing is that we're not getting burnt on transition going the other way, because we're not all running ahead of the ball. So, whether it was just how the game panned out or whether it was by design, I think it really suited the way that we took the field in terms of our personnel to play that way. Now, just before we get into some team stats, we do have Benzo here, who's put his hand up, or put their hand up. If anyone wants to have a chat, obviously we are live and interactive, so I'll bring you in, Benzo. You've got the green light there, mate, so come on in. And if anyone else wants to have something to say, stick your hand up and we'll get you on board as well. Benzo, when you're ready, mate, come in. I think there's a button up the top you've got to press. In the meantime, we might go to some individual stats, I think. Benzo might have mistakenly put his hand up. All right. Let's have a look at some stats. Benny Keys, again, leading disposals, 31 touches. Second, yep. 15 kicks, 16 handballs, 5 marks, 6 tackles. He had 8 clearances, 478 metres gained, spent most of his time on the ground. Had 6 inside 50s, 10 score involvements, which was a team high, along with a couple of others. Disposal efficiency is down, as we come to expect, 65. 13 contested possessions, 18 uncontested possessions. Certainly in the conversation for, pardon me, best player.
Well, he's definitely certainly in the conversation, but certainly for me, I reckon in the best 2 or 3.
Yeah. When you want to talk about work rate, there are a couple of times where, and I think the commentators even pointed out, that he just gut run. Just amazing fitness that he's got. And
if you're talking about gut running, there's only him in the conversation. There are no others that compete.
He would have to just about be the hardest working player in the comp, wouldn't he?
Well, I think that even some of the guys, the Victorian commentators, have actually made that statement, that they can't think of a player that's a better gut runner than him.
Yeah, and they did. But also it's kind of interesting because when we were watching the replay of the game, and I'm just looking at my dad going, why are they talking us up so much? You went, just look at them all. They hate Richmond. It's like, oh, yeah, true. They hate us less than they hate Richmond. Yeah, but they're not wrong about it. And they did some beautiful highlights of, that his running that he would do, that he just gets on his bike and he goes, but he will also do it defensively.
He works all around the ground.
Yep.
Brody Smith, 28 disposals, 17, 11, 4 marks, 3 tackles, 2 clearances, 623 metres gained. He had 5 inside 50s, 4 score involvements, 5 intercepts, 6 contested possessions. He's having a very good start to the season, Brody Smith. Very consistent.
He has had a good year so far.
And that was it the third quarter when they were really, was it the third quarter or the last quarter? I'm trying to remember which quarter it was, but where he was just basically decided, no, third quarter. He just went, no, you're not getting it past me. He was literally the wall. Like, they would get it out of our forward line and he was just there and he was like, it's going straight back in. Don't care. Not getting past me. He had such a good game and a really good impact on the game.
Yeah, 7 rebound 50s too. I don't know what CPR means. Something. CPR mean term contested possession rate. I don't even know what that means. But I just it's good. It's very good to see Brody playing the way that he is now that we've got Jordy in the team as well, because it's a really good 1-2 punch off halfback, and we'll get to Dawson in a minute, but their ability to rebound off halfback is vital in my opinion. Matty Crouch, 26 touches, 12 and 14, 3 marks, 4 clearances, 335 metres gained, 72% time on ground. 5 score involvements, went at 92% disposal efficiency, only 5 contested possessions. I'll leave it to others to tell me what they thought.
Sometimes very, very slow to dispose of the ball. I just couldn't believe him at times. He'd just stand there for about 10, 15 seconds before he did anything. And then generally it was just a handball or a very short pass. So I don't think he would have got a lot of metres gained.
Yeah, he does. He's not an instinctive footballer. You contrast him with Berry, who is so fast that he gets that ball and he knows where, and if he has to get rid of it quickly, he knows where the other players are around him. He doesn't hesitate and he gets rid of it. Whereas there was one of the ones which was on their half forward line it would have been fumbled across and we were keeping pressure. We were still moving it around. It got to Crouch. There was one of our players right next to him. He was about to got Richmond players closing down on him, and you can see him pause and think, and then he handballs. And of course, that player then gets tackled because Richmond been able to close up on him. That's the problem I have with Crouch, is that he doesn't take the first option. He kind of double thinks himself, and he's never going to fix that. It's too late in his career to do so.
Yeah, I think he's very good at finding the ball, but it's just he doesn't have an instinctive disposal.
Yeah.
As you say, he always has to have a real think about it, and if you really want to move the ball very quickly, it actually slows the team down. That's my one criticism. He can certainly find the ball.
Do you think he's frightened of making a mistake by foot?
No, but he's always been like that. He's always done that stutter. He's never taken that.
But let's not forget that the last coach that he played under was Don Pike, who was scathing about making errors.
Yeah.
And he hasn't had a lot of game time really under Matthew Nicks since his injury. And I just wonder whether he's still in that frame of mind where he's a bit afraid to make a mistake. The one thing that I'll say about Crouch, he never gets off the mark far enough to give himself enough room by foot. And I actually think that contributes to the fact that he ends up being more comfortable kicking the ball sideways, because he actually doesn't give himself enough space. But you're right, he's not instinctive, but he always seems to be wanting to take the risk-free option. And there's nothing necessarily bad with that, but when you're trying to move the ball quickly and you've got blokes presenting and you have to be pinpoint with your pass, at some stage you've got to back yourself to be able to make those kicks, surely.
Yeah. Some players just like that. I mean, watching Kelly, who used to play for us last year and played with Essendon last week, he forgot a fair bit of the ball, but I know he just slowed the game down every time for Essendon, every time he had the ball. So it's just I don't think they've got that instinctive feel about what to do with the ball once they've got it. They've got to look around and weigh it up mentally and then do it.
And
whereas the top players just do it so instinctively.
Well, and you'd think if and who knows whether this is true or not, but you would think that Nicks has a certain style of play that he wants them to play, and blokes run to positions accordingly. So you would think that Crouch would know where to look. Instinctively he should be looking at where he expects the next option to be, because you would expect that they would drill that. So if we're trying to play a possession style game and use the ball by foot from stoppage or from a mark or a free kick, you would think that Matty would know where to look. And often, as you say, Nick, he does look there, but he just doesn't pull the trigger.
Certainly not a gambler.
No, not a gambler. Thanks, Nicky. All right, let's move on. Rory Laird, 26 disposals, 11 and 15, 5 marks, 4 tackles, 327 metres gained, 5 clearances. Pardon me. He had 4 inside 50s, 10 score involvements, 3 intercepts, 14 contested possessions. Even though his disposals were down on his usual output or his recent output, I actually thought it was possibly Lairdy's best game for the season, to be honest with you, in terms of impact.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I thought he played a very, very good game, but I think he's been more dominant in a couple of, at least in one other game.
Well, he's got more of the ball, but I just felt like his impacts his disposals had more of an impact this week.
So you're saying more value for money, you reckon?
Yeah, more impact on the game.
Yep. Yeah, no, he played well.
Nikki, are you with us, or are we holding him up from?
I am. No, I am. It's just you guys are. I'm just kind of agreeing with pretty much everything you guys are saying. It's like,
Yeah, unfortunately, because you won't show your face on video, you're going to actually have to speak because we can't see you nodding.
You have a cup of tea of Vicky's, aren't you, Nikki?
no,
What do you think about ladies' game, Nick?
I really liked it. I'm just trying to decide whether he's in the top 5 or not. It's really hard. I've kind of got 4. And I'm just like, is he in there or are some others in there? It was there was there was a comment made about one of like some of his kicks that he was doing, and somebody made the comment of, oh, he's lowered his eyes, and my response to that was, he's always lowered his eyes, but he's finally lowered his kick, which my father found hilarious. So I actually thought that was a really good. Some of those forward passes he did, they weren't those dolly up in the airs, which we've loved that he accumulates it, but they were so easy for defenders to pick off. But he seems to be.
His longer kicks were still balloons.
Yeah, they still go up. I think that's what happens when he wants to get his distance. But when they're that shorter distance, he used to do the netball lob with his kick, but they were a lot flatter, which really was to the advantage of our forwards. And I think that's what showed up in and how good we were at converting.
Yeah, well, like I said, 10 score involvement, so he certainly got involved in some scoring chains, which was good.
He did.
Thanks, Nikki, for waking up. Jordy Dawson, 24 disposals, 18 kicks, 6 handballs, 6 marks, 749 metres gained, if you don't mind. He had 4 inside 50s, which kind of shows that he was playing a little bit behind the ball. When I say behind the ball, like staying back around the half, like behind centre. 8 score involvements, though, 8 intercepts, 83.3% disposal efficiency, which does surprise me a little bit because he was a little bit tardy. 6 contested possessions. As I mentioned earlier with Smithers, I reckon him and Jordy are just a fantastic halfback combination.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Dawson certainly had a real quality back there.
Yeah, and he's unflustered, which is what I really like. He doesn't panic.
He's actually, and he's not frightened to take him on too. There was a couple of times there I thought when he was about to kick the ball and they were closing in on it, but he's got the ability to weave past them and then still find a target up forward. He's just going to get better and better every game he plays for us.
Yeah. Tommy Duday played all right, 22 disposals. Just seems at times. It's unusual with Tom. Prior to his injury, I would have said a similar thing about him as I just said about Dawson, that he was unflappable and cool under pressure, but he just seems to have lost his spatial awareness a little bit. Would you guys agree with that?
A little, yeah, just a little.
It does a bit at times. Yeah, but then at other times I thought it was kind of back to what we know about how good he is at that intercept and everything else. I mean, like that one on the wing where he just kept eyeing that ball and he was going to punch it, and the 2 Richmond players just kind of left it for each other, which, opened the door beautifully for him. But yeah, I mean, because he was slipping over and so were others, and we're like, is the grass maybe a little bit longer? It looked a really good deck, though.
What was that, Nick?
Did they have the grass a little bit longer, which, if you've got the moulded stops, then you tend to, when you try to change direction quickly, because there are a few of them that we're slipping over, and it was Richmond were doing it as well, not just us. But, that ball's up in the the ridiculous revolt accidental goal, because he didn't mean to do that at all. That was like
but I think he slips over quite a bit, though, Nick. I mean, he's got the rubber stops, and when you
Yeah, because you have to.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just feel like he's just lost a little bit of his spatial awareness and maybe not as Mr. Reliable as we used to. But hopefully that will change. Billy Frampton's game was an interesting one. 22 disposals, 18 and 4. He took 9 marks, 535 metres gained. He had 1 inside 50, 2 score involvement, 6 intercepts, went at 77% disposal efficiency, 4 contested possessions.
Yeah, I thought
those stats are good stats. They are good stats. You would not be...
They are.
But how many... I'm trying to find the stats for fumbles. Because I reckon, without fail, every time someone kicked it to him or handballed it to him or he tried to take a mark or whatever, he fumbled the damn thing. It was almost comical how much he fumbled.
Well, we had 2. He had 2 that were costly, that cost goals. But I was going to raise him as well, in the sense of what do you make of his game? Because 22 disposals on paper looks excellent. He's a good user of the ball. He's a long kicker of the ball. With ball in hand, he can actually seem to think as well. As I said, they were just through what you would call almost under 10 or under 11 type fumbles. He cost us a couple of goals, and
it's almost like he left his glasses at home. Literally, it seemed like his depth perception was all out. I remember there was one 3 metre handball, not under any pressure, and he just about bloody fumbled that. It's like, come on, Billy, what the hell?
And somebody said he's got no composure under pressure. Well, it could be that. Me pun?
I disagree with that because he can kick well under pressure. It's his ball handling skills.
Yes, I have to agree with you on that. As I said, there were 2 dastardly ones that cost us goals, and and they just ones you should never give away. But having said that, I think he's adjusting to playing back there. A couple of times early in the piece, he'd go for the front position and get lent on and pushed out of position. But I just think he's getting better at playing against good players. But he just has that ability to pull out those couple of shockers every so often that's just going to cost you goals. So I think we've probably the best option we've got there for the moment. I mean, there's a guy we picked 6 who should be playing there, but never going to be there on current form. I mean, Mackesy. And I think it's sad when you've got pick 6 playing in the Bees and looking not very good, and you've got a reject from Port Adelaide playing in that position and not doing too bad. So, I give Frampton a pass, but there was a negative there.
Nick, how'd you see it?
I think Varley Magic's kind of nailed it exactly. What I think he's the opposite of Hardigan. Hardigan was a good defender, but dubious on disposal. But Billy's disposal is his strength, but his defence needs work. He's one of those who needs Duday to come off his player to help him out, because he can, even though he's got some strength, he doesn't quite know how to use it as a defender. And so that's where he can kind of get a little bit out of position, and a good forward will really take advantage of that. And it's just that those defensive instincts are not quite natural to him. But I think a lot of his disposal is actually quite clean. And is proactive, which is what I want to see coming out of the backlines.
Yeah, but do you need to see that from your centre-half back? I think that's the thing that I'm getting stuck on at the moment. Billy's primary job, in my opinion, is to be an aerial defender. He's there to take the second best forward of the opposition. And you're dead set right, Nicky, that he benefits a lot from Duday coming in as a third up. And Richmond tried to isolate Duday at times. They didn't do a very good job of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Duday was on, was it Parker, I think, for a lot of the time. I felt like they should have actually tried to get a match up with Revolt on Duday to try and get Duday out of the forward line a bit, because Revolt was playing relatively high. I thought Hardwick could have done more to try and isolate Frampton. There's no doubting that Billy is good by foot. I don't think he's that strong in pack situations. I don't think he's that strong one-on-one when he doesn't have front position. You'd really want to merge Billy and Nick Murray to get your perfect second key defender. Nick Murray's aerial attack on the ball was fantastic. Billy by foot is far better and more trustworthy. So I agree with you, Mac. We don't have a lot of options at the moment, and who knows how long it's going to take for Fisher to come up into being an option. He's certainly not an option there at the moment on SANFL form.
There's another.
Not this year.
No,
I think there's another one in the SANFL we're just waiting on.
Tell us about it, Nick.
Borlase.
He's not tall enough.
Yeah.
He's not tall enough to play that
How tall is
position.
he looks tall enough. Whenever I see him in the SANFL and up against Backesy and everybody else,
Yeah,
he
that's
looks tall enough,
those
and
big
he's
boys,
solid.
those big boys.
He's better. He's better.
You there, Nick?
I was, but you went away.
No, I think you got some network issues, Nicky. Keep fading in and out.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I was just going to say that in the SAFL, the type of player that Borlase is standing is probably not as tall as what you'd face in the AFL. They're just those few inches bigger because that's what makes them better. And Borlase, I reckon his form has been pretty good, but he could struggle. Frampton's got the height, but he's raw. He's never played in the back lines ever. I was reading an article where he was talking about it, and that he's only ever played forward or in ruck, but mainly up forward. And he said, but he's liking this down back situation, and he wants to make it a position for himself for the long term. Well, that will certainly depend on him improving, and I reckon he has improved, but he's got, as Fee and I were talking about the schoolboy errors, a couple of schoolboy errors that were costly, and he'll learn the tricks of where to stand and what to do, etc., etc. If he does that, he'll be an asset to us, and then if he can tidy up his ball handling a bit, then he could possibly make the position his own. But at this stage, he's there because we've got no one better.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call, Macca. I'm just having a look at Borlase's height. Just bear with me a second. James Borlase. He's 192, so Katatak, you're about 4 centimetres short, which is or too much, which is what I suspected. 192 isn't tall enough to in modern footy to be a key back, in my opinion.
No, not quite.
Frampton, on the other hand is 202 centimetres, so therein lies your difference. I think it's a worry, actually, that position, longer term.
Well, yes, it is, because there aren't many other options. One thing about Murray has a fair crack, but he's raw. He's very, very raw. Nobody can ever doubt his effort. Nobody can ever doubt he's fearless, etc., etc. But he's raw, and a good player can beat him because of that. In time, he will get better, but as I say, at the moment, Frampton's our best option.
Yeah, I like Nick Murray a lot. I think the aggression that he provides and the effort that he provides and the aerial work that he provides leaves Billy for dead. And this is where I come back to, what do we value out of a key position defender? Do we value the ability to distribute the ball, or do we value the ability to nullify an opponent? And I think I would have Nick Murray in the team over Billy Frampton because personally, and this is a matter of opinion, for a key tall defender, I want him to nullify his opponent, and I think Nick Murray is better equipped to do that than Billy Frampton.
Yeah, I think it's 6 and 1.5 a dozen the other at the moment, Fiend, because both of them have got their deficiencies.
But what do you value more though, Macca?
Defender.
From a key position defender, what do you value more?
Well, the combination basically is to stop scoring, but the good defenders not only stop scoring, they also get the ball, and neither of these can do both.
I know, so that's my point. So because neither of them can do both, what do you value more? As a key position defender.
I like Murray, and I was surprised when he got dropped. But I think that we have to persevere with the Frampton experiment for a few more weeks, because there are things I like about him back there, and there are things I don't like about him back there. But he's only ever probably played half a dozen games in defence. We have to remember that. And
what seat are you running for, mate? On May the 20, whatever it is. What seat are you running for? Because I asked you that direct question 3 times, and you've skipped it 3 times.
I think it's 5.4%, mate.
Yeah.
No. I would go with Frampton at this stage for the reasons that I said.
Not what I asked.
Well, ideally, I'd love to have a defender that stopped the bloke from getting any goals and any kicks at all.
Still not what I asked. I asked, what do you value more? A bloke who can nullify his opponent and defend, or a bloke who can distribute the ball? Your key position defender.
I'm getting some rubbish about
so you bloody should.
Look,
just answer the bloody question. God damn it!
I would if you'd stop talking. I would look. Obviously, ideally, you'd have one that's the perfect defender. But we haven't.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Oh my god!
Can I answer it?
Well, you answer, Nick.
I would actually prefer one at the moment, one who can defend better. So that to me, that's Murray. But I can see, looking at the defence overall, players that we thought we were going to get the nice kicks out of defence and to be that distributor are not doing that. Therefore, I think that's why they're preferring Frampton at the moment and trying to get the others to compensate for where he lacks and work as a team.
Nah. I don't buy it.
Did that pass?
Well, it wasn't out of your mouth, Macca, so no, it didn't. You're in the sin bin. Right. Personally, I'd have Murray in for the reasons that But I'm the same as you, Nick. I can see why they're persisting with Frampton. Because if you can make a defender out of Frampton, then you've got a very good footballer. I guess the jury's out whether you can teach Nick some composure or whether you can teach Billy some aerial skills. I'm not sure. Billy Frampton is an excellent mark, but it just seems to be when he's playing in defence, his ability to judge properly is not quite there yet. And Macca, you did make a good point, all jokes aside. You know, he's only played a handful of games in defence. He's very green when it comes to being a defender, and maybe they can see that there's stuff to work with, and maybe they're seeing that it's a better bet at the moment. So I don't disagree, but I worry at the moment that Billy aerially against a tall attack might be aerially a bit of a liability. And Geelong in particular, absolutely, Nikki. And I could see that I was surprised that Hardwick didn't try and play through Billy Moore to expose him.
Well, I have to agree with that. I'm not saying that I'm a Frampton fan or a fanatic. I'm just saying.
I know.
I just think that he's the best that we have at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's not ideal, but it's what the best we've got.
Yeah. I didn't ask you any of those questions. I asked one question that you didn't answer. So. All right.
No,
that's it. That's it. No, you've had
I can answer. We don't have that person.
Yeah. That still wasn't the question. Lockie Shold, 21 disposals, 12 and 9. He had 5 marks, 322 metres gained. Was quiet for long periods of the time, Lockie, but I thought his last quarter or his last half was pretty good. He had 4 inside 50s, 5 score involvements, 5 contested possessions. Like I said, quiet, but stood up when he needed to, I thought.
I liked Shoal's game early. He doesn't really like physical stuff.
No, we said that every week.
Yeah, but I thought he read the ball very well, and he has always been a fairly good distributor of the ball as well. It'll be interesting next week. I'd have him trying to run with Smith for a while because he's got a big engine.
An interesting call, Mac. What do you reckon, Nick?
You dropped out on me.
I think your network's cooked. You got your VPN on tonight, haven't you? I know you have.
No, I do not. I don't have my VPN on anymore.
Oh, something's happening. Anyway, Braden Cook, as I mentioned, 17 disposals. Probably flew under the radar a bit. I'm surprised his disposals were that high. But he was quite prominent when he had the ball. Defensively, I thought he was very good. 375 metres gained. Spent 81% time on ground. Had 3 score involvements, 6 intercepts though. 88% disposal efficiency. It was a really nice game from Braden, I thought.
Oh, I loved it. And what it did, it spelled out and said, I'm going to be a very, very good player then in the future. I mean, 15, I think it was 15 or 17 disposals, whichever it was. 17. That was fantastic in a game that was, tight and tough. And he was not out of place one little bit. In fact, he was very good in it. And, I thought he made the most of his opportunities. And he certainly doesn't, he's not frightened. He's got pace. He looks when he's got the ball. And I just think he's going to be a very good player for us long term. They must keep playing him and playing him. He's going to be so good.
Yeah. I've got to say that Scoot Malouk in the chat is a very, very weird person. I've been a Cook fan since he dropped in here, so I don't know what you're going on about. Lockie Murphy, 17 disposals, 8 and 9, 248 metres gained. What I liked about Lockie's game, or the way they played Lockie, is what we were saying a couple of weeks ago, is that his work around the contest is really starting to show, and I'm glad they're getting him involved a little bit more, whether it's by design or just the way that the cookie's crumbling. But he's getting involved more at stoppage, and he's showing us that he's a genuine stoppage player. 6 inside 50s, 4 score involvements, 7 contested possessions. His work around stoppage was excellent, I thought.
Was, and on top of that, once he got hold of it, sometimes there was a beautiful, long, raking left foot kick into the forward lines. I'm surprised I think he played much better than we all thought he would.
Well, like when you pick a guy who's won a best and fairest as a midfielder as an under 18, and you play him in a high half forward position or in a dead pocket position next to Eddie Betts or whatever.
We're good at that.
What are you going to get out of him? And as soon as you put him where his skill set is suited, you start getting results. And this has been one of our criticisms for a long time in terms of our squad management, is that we play blokes out of position. And I really like the fact that they were playing Lockie and Josh quite high and getting them in and around stoppage clearances, stoppage situations. And Lockie Murphy really shone in those circumstances. And like you said, Macca, he was able to hit up targets going forward. So, whether it's a bit of a rethink or just a bit of an evolution of the way we're structuring up, I like the way that they're playing Lockie, and I think we're getting the best out of him. And look, a month ago, I would have, pardon me, God, I got the hiccups. A month ago, I would have said Lockie Murphy, second stringer depth. But when it just goes to show that when you allow, in Nix's vernacular, a bloke to show his weapons by playing him in the right position and the right role, all of a sudden we got a player.
I totally agree. Pedler got crucified. He's a midfielder who got stuck in a forward pocket, to give a very good example of what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And Murphy's been... Yeah, Berry on a half-forward flank, Murphy on a half-forward flank. And we need midfielders. And they've given Murphy a bit of a run there, and he's shown that he'll rise to the occasion. I hope when Pedler does get another opportunity that they give him a chance to do the same thing.
I can only think that he hasn't got the legs at the moment, Mac, and they're protecting him. That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that might
he fades out a bit in the SNFL.
Does he? Yeah, well, that's probably...
he did on the way. He did on Friday. Just on Murphy in the midfield, I just compare him to our AFLW team. Look what Rochelle Martin did. Why can't he be our Rochelle Martin?
Because he's a bloke.
But that same type of player that even though they're supposedly undersized, but because they are still such a natural footballer and they are so competitive, and he's very quick. People actually forget how quick Murphy actually is. He brings some speed back to our midfield.
No, I think good point. You made a very good point there, Nicky. And if you don't give them a try, and as I didn't realise, that he played his junior football as a midfielder.
Exceptional midfielder.
Yeah, and the club certainly should have known that. And yet I've never seen him play on the ball ever before. And this week he played on the ball, and like you said, he did some very, very nice things indeed. And I hope they continue to use him through the rotations. He's got something to offer.
Yeah. Sammy Berry in for the first time this year, which was great to see. Didn't have a huge impact on the game, and at times kind of missed targets, I think, because he thought blokes were going to be there and they weren't there. Still, he only had the 3 kicks, 13 handballs, 4 tackles, only 137 metres gained. Not huge numbers by any means, 4 score involvements. But it was nice to have him in the mix, 10 contested possessions. Nice to have him in the mix. And I do hope they persist with him for a period of time, particularly with the situation with Sloane now.
Well, definitely, and I think that definitely means not only him, but others have to get the opportunity to go through there because you've got to have several rotations. But he was reasonable. I'll give him a pass for the first effort, but in the mid there. But I think he's got to do just a little bit more.
Low pass. We need more output from him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the thing is that only 3 kicks and 13 handballs. That's crouch stuff, and so I'd like to see him just get, and he's probably got to get the feel of it, but to get around the ground and make opportunities to get loose balls as well, not just contested balls. But
I felt like he got caught a couple of times, Mac. I don't know whether you noticed. I felt like he got caught a couple of times at centre bounce, ball watching a bit and not watching his opponent, and particularly in the first half when Nankervis was toweling Rob up in the middle. He just wasn't quite defensive enough when he needed to be. He seemed to be trailing his player a little bit. So he probably needs to work on that, but it's the first time he's crumbed to O'Brien all year, so you could probably forgive that a bit.
Yeah. No, look, he's got promise, and I think persevere with him, and also, as you say, run the others through there as well.
Yep. The thing with Berry, and one of the things I like about him so much, is that you'll never die wondering with Sam. He'll give you effort.
Absolutely.
Oh, right, Tex. What a revelation. The second coming of Tex, for goodness sakes. I feel like we're seeing, everything that we've said about Tex over the journey, and, we've had him out of the team, we've had him wanting to retire. I've been a big G for giving Fogarty the keys up until recently. I just think irrespective of what happens now, Taylor Walker is a credit to himself as a footballer, as a professional footballer, to be able to come back from that last piece of adversity. A lot of people thought he'd retire after that happened, and to not just be serviceable, but to transform our forward line, and to be such a key element of our team at 32 years of age. He can stay there as long as he wants, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, as our statistician Vardy Magic said, in 2020, Tex only got 15 goals from 14 matches. In at 2021, he was reborn again, and then he had the situation where he got stood down for his incident, and a lot of people thought he would retire, but no, I never thought he would. I thought that he would come back and show everybody, and that he would redeem himself. And not only that, he'd carry on where he was last year, and he's probably gone to another height rather than just carry on. He's been fantastic.
And it's not just, his own skill level and the way he, is working in the game. It was also, I saw the captain Tex out there again, just that leadership that he does on the field of making sure everybody is in the right position. And if there's not, oh my God, does he give him a spray? But he gets them, positioning up higher to stop that outlet. And I think Nix was questioned about it, and all he had to say was, we have a really young forward group and we needed somebody senior. And look at what's happened. Even though, yes, we did get beaten last week, you could see that our forward line was working better.
Well, this is the thing. Nick, we've been saying you need senior players playing in your team as long as they're playing well. And the difference between Tex and Sloane has been that Tex has come in and performed, just amazing since he's come in. And that's the sort of experience you want in your team, because you can see Elliott's, benefiting from it. The Smalls are benefiting from it. I can see Rochelle and Walker just gelling straight away, which is crazy because they're both smart, intelligent football players. So, all credit to Tex, and he's been bashed from pillar to post on media and even on this podcast in terms of his bad performances. And like Vardy pointed out a couple of years ago, what was it? Less than 20 goals from 15 games, and you thought his career was done.
Yeah.
We thought he was done.
And we were talking about he has to retire.
Exactly. He looked slow. He didn't look agile. He's never going to be the quickest bloke, but he just looked heavy-legged. He was going up one-handed to everything. I don't know what's happened, but whatever's happened, it's just a credit to him. It really is.
Well, I think he's both. In a way, the break may have well helped him in the sense of making him physically and mentally more determined to succeed, and because of the situation that he got himself into, and the break helped him as well. So he's come back refreshed mentally, physically, and I don't think he's ever played better than this.
No, he looks in the beginning of last season. He was up to leading the Coleman at the halfway mark, mate. He was going all right then too before he picked up a couple of niggles. But aside from that, he's almost up to pre-ACL levels at the moment. He really is.
Yeah, no, outstanding.
So excellent game from Taylor, and not only his own personal output, which was brought him to within 2 of 500 career goals, I think. Kicked 5 goals, needed 7,
Yep.
I think, so 2 to go. But it wasn't only that output; it was the impact that he had on the players around him was excellent. And just on that, in the theme of the forward line, Elliot Himmelberg deserves a praise as well. Although I'm not getting on the train because we all know what happens when I get on the Himmelberg train. So I'm off Himmelberg. He sucks. He's terrible. Get rid of him. However, he's been playing really well, and we're starting to see what he can do at ground level. That take and snap might have surprised many, but it didn't surprise me because he has shown repeatedly that he's good below his knees.
Nope.
Well, he's had a run of very good games. All I can say is, we were getting stuck in him a little bit before that. I just hope that, he's shown what he can do. So it's not a question of whether he can do it or not. It's the question the question is, will he do it or not in terms of wanting to as hard as he's wanting to at the moment? I'm very pleased with him at the moment in the sense that you can see that he wants to be a good player at the moment and he wants to he's putting everything he's got into it. And I don't think he's good enough that he can play well without doing that. So if he puts everything he's got into it, he's an AFL player and a good one. And he has strung 3 good ones together now. So let's just hope that keeps going.
Yeah, and some people in the chat pointing out his opposition, and that's fair enough to a degree. But what I'm seeing from Elliot is repeat efforts and not sagging off in marking competitions.
That's it.
Staying in the contest even when he's out of position. Whereas before, if he wasn't in the right position or didn't feel he was in the right position, he tended to sag off, and that's what I'm saying. And I don't really care what the reason for it is, and I'm not on the Berg train, but there's no doubt that with Himmelberg playing well and Tex back in the team, and what are we going to do with Riley Thilthorpe soon? That could be an interesting one. We've all of a sudden got a forward line that seems to be functioning quite well.
Yeah, and all the individuals are putting in their little bit into it. McHenry was probably perhaps the quietest of the forward line on the weekend. Glant a little bit too, but they still did something. They still did their bit. It wasn't a case of not trying or not putting in effort. It was a pretty good forward line.
That's very true, and a few people saying McHenry played badly, and he certainly didn't have a huge impact from a disposal point of view. But I tell you what, late in the game, or in the clinches when Richmond were coming back, some of his aggression and attack on the ball was fearless, and he got a couple of really nice crumbs for a couple of score involvements there. I still don't know what to make of Ned McHenry, but I won't cop the fact that he's useless or shocking, because the kid will put his body in where no one else wants to put their body in, and you've got to give him respect for that.
Yeah, another interesting thing, when we drafted him, he was actually playing midfield as well. He wasn't playing half forward. So he's another one.
Well, he was wasn't he the...
Him and Chase were 2 best midfielders in the SANFL side.
No. What I'm saying is that in his draft year, wasn't he the second midfielder to Sam Walsh?
Yes,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he was,
and they were a pretty good 1-2 punch. So again, it's a situation where he's not playing in a position that he's been drafted for whatever reason. So anyway. We won't go through the rest. Just quick mentions. I thought Jordy Butts recovered after a tentative start with Tommy Lynch getting a couple of grabs early. I thought Jordy really tightened up and was pretty good. As you mentioned, Lockie Gallant didn't do a hell of a lot, but when the ball's in his area, he always makes an effort. I thought Shane McAdam, despite not having a huge disposal impact. I thought he was his defensive efforts were really good. And Josh Rochelle, again, only 11 touches, but every time he gets near it, you just think to yourself, Jesus, what a player.
Yeah, very quiet up to half time, but his second half was good.
What do you reckon? Like his form is good enough to warrant teams putting work into him, Mac?
Oh, and they will, but he'll still get goals. He's just a clever footballer.
But I think that's what you might find happening, and it might have been that way against Richmond, although I didn't notice it particularly. But they'd be conscious of him. He's not just some kid. He's
they were
he's a playmaker.
They were conscious of him at the ground.
Yeah, they certainly were. But the whole point is he's so clever that you just relax for 1 second and he's off.
Yeah.
And he just worked and worked and worked. So he didn't quite come off in that first half, but because he just kept at it, and he just hates being beaten, and he hates not being involved. You can just see that so much from the way he plays. I've played on a couple of players like that, and it's mentally draining.
Yeah, what I like about it, even though he's only a first year player that played 5 games, he still wants to be the man, and that's a mentality that most players don't get until they've been playing AFL for several seasons, and he's just born with it.
But you know what, Macca? I don't disagree with you, but that's what you get from high draft talent. And the reason I say that is because they have been the man all through their junior career.
Yeah.
Right? These high draft picks, they come in with confidence. You don't have, a bloke like Sam Berry who's just a good, honest player, and even Harry Schomburg, mid-30s. These lads that have been at the peak at every age group level, they come in with that ingrained confidence, and it makes a hell of a difference. And it's, no coincidence, in my opinion, that he stands out so much, because we haven't had too many of those in our history. Paddy Dangerfield was probably the last one that came in with a strut, but we haven't had too many top 10 draft picks and use them on mids. And I reckon you can see that in Josh, that he's got that. It's not even swagger. It's confidence in his ability. He feels like he belongs.
Oh no, massive self-belief that he can do anything.
Yeah. So that's really good. Chase, I thought, had a funny game because I thought defensively is quite good, but his disposal was a bit off. Luke Brown had a quiet game. Not quite time to worry about Luke yet, but almost.
When they got that run on, Brown was the one manning up. The first one, Smith was on the ground. Then he went off on the bench. Then they kicked another, I think, 2 or 3 quite quickly, and Brown was the one who was completely letting his man off the chain. And immediately we made a change, brought Smith on, and just completely swapped Smith with Brown. So I think Brown's really got to lift his game, because he's not the Brown of old. He's not giving us that run out of defence. He's not giving us a kick, and he's letting us down defensively.
I still think he's I don't think he's ever really recovered from that Achilles, to be honest with you, because when he has games where the injection seems to work, he is the Brown of old, but he seems to just be lacking a yard.
At the moment,
I just feel like I just feel like the body's not doing what the mind wants him to do. I've got a lot of time for Luke Brown as a small defender. He's been excellent for us, and I just feel like he's carrying something. And of course, Rory Sloane, who, in a sad irony, we finally moved Rory into a position, and he was predominantly playing high half forward, but I have a feeling that Nixie just told him to run around, because he was in all parts of the ground. He was playing defensively as well as up forward, and it seemed to free Sloaney up to just play football without the responsibility of being first bloke at the contest. And it was probably the best game I've seen Sloaney play for a while in terms of impact. And it was such a shame under those circumstances to see him do that ACL. And, obviously we send our best wishes to him. Not that he'd be listening, but is that the way you guys saw it?
Totally, absolutely, totally. And it was sad, but then when he got hurt, because I reckon I'd said to Mrs. Macker probably about 3 minutes before that, and put the kiss of death on him, how well he was going, that it looks like he's been given license just to roam around, because he's sometimes in the forward line, sometimes he's in the back lines, and he was finding the ball, and I thought he was doing a very, very good job. And then sadly, it was when you see it in slow motion, it was a very nasty buckle. His knee just buckled sideways.
It was a lateral movement, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was horrible, and you knew just straight away, well, that's him gone for the year, and maybe he's gone for good, because he won't be. I mean, he obviously out for the rest of this year. How long does it take to recover from an ACL?
8 to 12 months.
Yeah, and he's going to be 33 in March next year. So, but he does have a year to go on his contract, and maybe he will come back for a game or two. I don't know, but he's really been a good player for us for a very, very long time. This year, Father Time has caught up with him as a mid, and finally the coach must have listened to our show, and he decided he'd do what we've been suggesting for weeks, and Sloaney was doing very well. So I think when he comes back, if he does come back, he'd probably be coming back as a half-back flank.
Oh, he was doing so well in that last quarter, that start of that last quarter off that half-forward line, and just that pressure and everything else he was bringing was so good. And that's what we were talking about last week, either on the wing or on that half-forward line, was where he could be really, really helpful for the team, and it was showing it. It was an absolutely horrible moment when it happened. And yeah, I just hope it all goes well for him.
Yeah, and the fact he's got a year on his contract, one of in the chat there, Surf has suggested that make him perhaps a development coach for next year, and that way he can earn the same money type situation. I think that would be a good way around it, but Sloaney, I know, is a very determined individual, probably will want to try and make a comeback, but I think that would be a good solution.
Oh, well, no, I think the solution for Sloaney is that he does his rehab. Yep. I don't think there's any. I'm
agreeing with that. But he may then, and he'll still be on the list, but he will be playing in the Santhal and being a development coach.
No, I don't think he'd bother doing rehab to just do that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No. You make the call. You wait and see how it goes, and he'll make the call as well, because he knows what his body can and can't do. But they'll definitely do what they've done with Duday and the others, in that he will probably do some coaching in the SNFL and assisting with the SNL side. And I think that actually really benefits our SNFL team. And it has quite well, just to have somebody of his caliber. And he is very much somebody who I think coaching will come naturally to. Yep. But interestingly, he said he doesn't actually want to coach football. He wants to coach tennis.
Oh?
Because he was a tennis player as a youth. He doesn't want to be involved in football coaching. He has talked about that. He does say that, yes, he will be involved in coaching, but he actually wants to coach tennis and he wants to coach juniors.
I've never seen that, Nick.
I think that's going to be a key element of Sloane's decision making. He's a family-oriented person. He's expressed How much he values spending time with family. I wouldn't mind betting that he takes a breather from the game for a little while during the early stages of his rehab when he's relatively immobile. And that may well give him a different perspective. He may. I think one or two things is going to happen. He's either going to get partway through his rehab and decide that he wants to call it, or he will make the most of his rehab to get over some other niggles and refresh and come back for another season next year. I don't think Rory Sloane thinks he's finished as a player, and I don't think, even had the ACL not occurred, I don't think he feels like he's finished as a player. I think that's why it took so long to get us to crowbar him out of the bloody midfield rotations.
Well, I think that's correct. I think all that that's obviously why it has taken so long, and it did take a conversation with the coach and him privately to get that into his head that he's no longer a midfielder.
Yeah. So unless his rehab doesn't go so well and he gets halfway through it and thinks, I'm enjoying the family time, I'm going to call it quits, I think he'll attack it and make himself available next season. But we wish him all the best regardless, because no one wants that for any player, let alone your captain. Interesting quandary then. Duday or Smith to captain for the rest of the year? Or left field, Tex Walker?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and Tex to me would be the obvious choice, but I think they won't because of the situation that he had last year. They, bring out stupid comments that this is how they reward a racist. So I think that probably it'd be Duday or Smith, and they say that Duday's a future captain. If he is going to be the future captain, well, then it should be him. But I rather like the idea of Smith, because I think that I think he does organise a lot in the back line. So, I like Smith.
Nick, who do you reckon?
I think Smith. Just the way he did it against Port, I think they'll want somebody who's that little bit more senior still at the moment. And the way Duday's playing, he probably just still needs a little bit more freedom to get himself right. And I think Smith very much is the one in waiting right now.
I like Firewalker's call about Laird. The worry I have about Smith is exactly what Firewalker said, that I think our next captain needs to be the captain for the next 5 or 6 years of the club, because that's how long it's going to take us to get back into real contention. And I don't know whether Smithers will be around for that amount of time. Laird certainly will be. Has Rory got the leadership skills? I think so. He certainly will last that long. He's only bloody 27.
There's a certain personality type too, though. No, I'm not sure that Lairdy is that type.
Brody's a joker. So what are you talking about? Brody's a class clown down there.
He's a class clown when he needs to be the class clown.
Yeah, but he also can be very, very serious when it's necessary as well. So yeah. Look, Laird, I've got no problem if Lairdy is very, very quiet, seemingly to us. Whether he's that in the club, I don't know. But if he's got the personality, it certainly would be a good choice, because that he's 100% man and never does anything but gives his best. But yeah, and somebody says in the chat, Tex used to clown around too when he was captain.
Yeah, and he wasn't a good captain.
Well, I thought he was okay. Anyhow,
to punch on with people in the change rooms. Anyway,
your choice is Laird?
No, my choice isn't Laird. My choice, I'm just saying that Laird, don't count Laird out, and to get a view on Laird's personality, go back and listen to the player interview we did with him last season. I think you get a different perspective. I don't think he'd be a bad choice. I don't think Laird would be a bad choice. I would go with Tom Duday.
Well, if he's going to be if they do think that he's going to be the future captain, then probably that makes sense. But, yeah, we'll see.
Page of Motion, another good one. Jordy Dawson probably hasn't been around at the club long enough. But had he been around for maybe a season or two, he'd certainly be up there. And Poor Eye Billy probably makes a good call that it's going to be an acting captain this year. So maybe we're jumping the gun in terms of trying to pick who the long-term next captain will be. And maybe by that stage, Jordy Dawson can be in the conversation.
Well, he would certainly be a good skipper.
I mean, I was only talking about it as an acting captain for the rest of the year, and that's why I think Smith, to me, is the obvious choice for that. And if he's not playing, then to me, it's highly likely that Duday is that next one up.
Yep. Alrighty, that just about sums that up. We've got a few minutes. If anyone wants to have a chat, feel free to jump in. But in the meantime, Nikki.
Yay!
It's Nikki's Cockwomble. Who you got for us, Nick?
So I did ask other people for some suggestions. My kind of main nomination was I think Port gave us quite a few nice laughs. And also Kenny still thinking that they could make finals was quite amusing. The others that most people that nominated suggested a certain Tom Hawkins for his nice little dive. And I think going on and watching it, it's just like, how the hell does he keep getting away with that from the umpires?
Oh, that's it.
Is that all?
Well, they were the two main ones, but I think Port.
Well, hang on, there's more.
Who
you
else?
Haven't asked us yet.
Okay,
Mac, have you got any?
Mine's actually a retrospective one. And if you look at, there's a picture that's been circulating around when we got beaten in a showdown and Kenny was so excited that he put a 0 up on one hand and 5 on the other, and that's been circulating all week. And so, to me, Kenny gets a retrospective Cockwomble.
I would have thought it would have been a perpetual Cockwomble, to be honest with you. We could almost call it the Kenny Hinkley Cockwombling Nut of the Week award. I've got one. Nathan Brown, who was stupid enough, the moment Ollie Wines was reported to have heart problems, Nathan Brown comes on national television and tries to make a thing about COVID boosters, even though there was no connection to it at all. Damien Barrett hopped in, Matthew Lloyd hopped in, they all this conspiracy theory bullshit, which was completely not true. They never checked facts, they never checked in with Ollie, they didn't wait to get any sort of clue from the club, they just started spinning around, adverse reactions to COVID boosters. And Nathan Brown is struggling to be relevant anyway because the only thing he's good at is reading odds out from a bloody teleprompter. He certainly made himself look like a cock-wobbling numbnut, that's for sure.
I think I've got an even better one, and it's Caro. When Footy classified last week that she had a real go at Rowie, and it said it was about time he stopped this South Australian eccentric bias. And everything. Coming from the most Vic-centric buddy show whatsoever, but yeah, she called him out and said it was sick and tired of him being so South Australian biased, and it's time for him to stop it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure maybe it was me and Pete that spoke about that last week, but you're right, Mac. It was the height of hypocrisy, Caro coming out with that. It was like, are you serious? Yeah. Talking about bloody bias? God damn. The other one is, well, there's a couple of umpiring ones at the moment. The first one is the inconsistency around standing on the mark, and we saw an example of that against Richmond, where Benny Keys was watching someone dance on the mark, and the umpire just was oblivious to it.
I didn't believe that. I did not believe that.
I know, that one was just like, what the hell?
It was just, and I'm surprised Benny didn't get a 50 paid against him and the ball turned over the way they've been administering the umpire's respect rule so arbitrarily over the last week. It came in with a bang at the beginning of the season, and then it kind of went away and slow. And this is what happens. Do you know what this is? This is a very good example of what happens with football umpiring. They bring in a rule and they enforce it to within an inch of its life for the first little while. And then, they just, that's not so bad. And, there's degrees of it and all of a sudden it's a mess, right? And here we are now with this bloody abusing the umpire thing. They cracked down on it at the beginning of the season. And then, all of a sudden you saw a little bit of back chat and a little bit of hands in the air and the umpires didn't do anything about it. And then it's kind of come back this week, but only depending on which umpire you are and which game you are and which team you want to win. And it's... What's going on?
I know, I agree with you. And I think they really have to sit down and define it because, footballers are human. They're giving every little bit that they can. And when you're in that heated situation and something goes against you, having been in that situation, you just react. And you're not really, if I did get reported for calling an umpire fucking cheap, but that was different. But sometimes you just say, "Oh, bullshit," or something like that, because it's just an emotional game. Because if you're giving 100%, there'll be an emotional reaction. If it's a 50-50 type situation, and some of the things that I saw 50 metres given for where the player said, "But I tried to get rid of the ball," or something like that, in that 50 metres because they called that umpire disrespect. Rubbish.
I don't look. I think the biggest issue for mine is that it's just it's now something that's open to interpretation, and it's a real study in what's wrong with the way that the AFL laws are implemented, because I don't know whether it's a Victorian trait or something, but they just seem to want to go, we don't want to be soft, so we'll let a little bit go. Well, it's got to be obvious. If you've got a rule, umpire the rule. Just umpire the bloody rule. If players aren't allowed to remonstrate with the umpire or talk to the umpire about decisions or whether you agree with it or not, umpire the goddamn rule so that everybody knows what's going on. It's the same with the holding the ball rule. They were going to crack down on holding the ball and incorrect disposal and, prior opportunity. How many times did blokes get turned 360 on the weekend without getting pinged for holding the ball? Everything seems to have this gradual creep of, I would just let a little bit go, rather than them just implementing a rule and then adjudicating on that rule. It drives me crazy. And this latest one is just a prime example of that problem, in my opinion.
Yep, I agree. And I do think they've really just got to iron it out in what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, because you can't accept them. It's not a sterile situation; it's a heated situation. So what reaction is okay? Throwing your arms out, or for God's sake, or something like that. That's nothing. That's just physical reaction. It's not even really aimed at the umpire. It's just the point that they just really pissed off about the situation as it was at that stage. If they did what I did, and actually personally say something at the umpire, I can understand that. But if it's just a body reaction to a situation, then just leave it.
Remember back in the day, Macca, one of the best umpiring traits that you could have as an umpire that understood the flow of the game, had a little bit of back and forth with a player, and KG Cunningham was a classic with regards to that, and there are a few others that were like that. And the game flowed, and this is back in the day where there's only one umpire, of course. The game flowed and all the rest of it. I don't think you can expect footballers in the heat of battle, like particularly or at any stage during any game, to be robots. Like you said, it's an emotional game. It's an emotional sport. I think the line should be dissent, right? That's the word, isn't it? Dissent. So you can question something without being dissenting. You know,
Yes.
you can say, why did you pay that free? That's not dissenting. That's asking a genuine question. And, you know, given some of the frees that are paid for blocking and ruck contests and all the bloody rest of it, it's a fair question to go, why did you pay it? Because it's not obvious, you know? So, but calling, you know, an umpire an idiot, well, that's dissent. It's a free. But the biggest problem that I've got with it, Mac, and this is kind of wandering away from Cockwomble a bit, I think certain umpires use it vindictively. I think
they do too.
I think certain umpires have it within their personality to use it vindictively, and that's dangerous. You're weaponizing umpiring in that situation because it's so subjective that an umpire that's got the shits on with a certain player or a certain team or whatever will weaponize it and use it at an inopportune moment, and that nearly happened to Hawthorne today.
Totally agree with you there, Fee.
Anyway, Nick, we just hijacked the Cockwomble, so you better straighten us up.
No, I won't mention names, but on that umpiring issues, there was South Australian umpire was one of the best, was pretty much the best umpire in the state, was elevated to the AFL level when it was still very Victorian controlled. Was somebody who would talk if the player abused them, he would right back at him, was often much better at the player in dishing it out backwards. And of course, a certain Victorian player didn't like the decision made, had a go at this particular umpire had a go back. And the team then complained to the AFL about how rude that umpire was to their poor player. And so that umpire got demoted.
So what's the moral of the story?
Oh, it's just, I find it ridiculous that how they've gone. I agree with you entirely that it's being weaponized by certain ones. I don't mind if there is something about dissent that, you know, if it does cross the line, because you're not allowed to do that talk back anymore. It used to get sorted out, you know, the heat of the moment, as Macca described it. It is. It's exactly like that. I've umpired the game and I've played the game, and I'm yeah, I've probably said some things I shouldn't have said on the field in both respects. And it's I think they should definitely go towards like it is in the SANFL, which is if you do dissent, the 25-meter penalty, bring that in to stop it out. But you're right that it does need to be sorted out, and it's very interesting how some very senior players, ex-senior players and commentators are very, very against this rule and say it needs to be clarified. And the players themselves, where they've talked to them, they said, we've got no idea. We're utterly confused about what we can and can't do as a player.
Well, you just need consistency. But straightening us up, Nikki, because it's nearly 2 hours, 15 minutes. Who's our Cockwomble of the week?
I think it's got to go to Kenny because the whole, it's just, yeah. There's some great memes going around. It was very hilarious with what's happened. And that's the whole thing with the Cockwomble. And, you know, and we like seeing Port down below us.
Very good.
At the bottom, the ladder's even better.
Very good. Well, the reason we've gone on so long tonight is because we're not having a Tuesday Night Live tomorrow night. It doesn't seem reasonable to have 2 live streams consecutive nights. So we have discussed a little bit more broadly than we otherwise would some of the topics that Pete and I would normally discuss on a Tuesday night. But I think it's time to wrap this one up. Thanks to everyone who's joined us on Discord and on YouTube.
Hang on, the best five.
Best players. We better do that one. We better do the best players.
You give yours first today, Nate.
Hang on a minute. All right. So the best players. Matt, go ahead.
Well, I was going to get you to do it first and copy you.
The good thing is that it's my show, so you don't get to tell me what to do.
I know. I tried. the impossible dream.
Just give me the goddamn players' names.
Well, actually, there were a few competing for it, but I think my first two, I go 5 to Walker and 4 to Keys, and 3 to Smith, and I have no hesitation in putting him in that order. After that, there was a bit of a lottery with players like McAdam and Laird and Himmelberg, but I gave 2 votes to Dawson, and probably unpopularly, but I gave 1 vote to Butt because I thought after the first couple of goals against him, he just tightened up, and I thought he was very, very, very brave and very, very good when it really counted in the last quarter, and so I gave him 1.
Very good.
My turn.
Might as well be.
So I exactly the same as Becca with Tex with 5, Keys with 4. Then I put Rochelle at 3. I just thought what he did in that last half, particularly the last quarter, just really helped get us over the line. And then I did 2 for Smith and 1 for Laird. Honourable mentions to Himmelberg.
Yeah,
So
he does get a.
Hang on, say that again. Walker, Keys, Rochelle,
Smith, Laird.
Smith, Laird. Okay. Sorry, go on.
Now you, Fiend.
Right, well, I gave 5 to Benny Keys. Thought some of his efforts were game-winning in a game where hard work was the order of the day. I gave 4 to Tex because he just controlled the forward line and really gave us an avenue. I gave 3 to Jordy, 2 to Rory Laird, and 1 to Elliot Himmelberg. For my 3.
So you didn't give a vote to Smith at all?
No, I couldn't fit him in.
Fair enough.
Sorry, mate.
Yep.
So let me just tally that up real quick, and we can even give you the running totals. Just keep talking amongst yourselves, you two.
Okay. Well, when I was looking at it, Nikki, I thought McAdam just didn't. He was good, but not quite good enough to get a vote. Probably a bit harsh not giving Laird a vote, but I wanted to give Butts 1 because of the fact that I just thought that he did some real game-saving stuff at the end. And Himmelberg, I thought he was close to getting a vote as well. So apologies to those blokes, but you could only put 5 in.
Yeah.
So you put the 5 in that you think.
And what we talked about at, the very start when we started discussing the game was that it was such not an even, but it was a team performance, so that there were, there was so many that you could fit in there. So the way I looked at it was the ones who I thought were really instrumental in the win in the end. The one, and I think the facts, the first 2 were undisputed, the best 2. And they could have gone either way as to whether you had them 1 or 2. And I think those last 3 positions, I don't have a problem with like you guys putting Dawson in there, because I was like, well, yeah, he could have as well, but I kind of looked at it, with what Rochelle did as a younger player. I mean, Dawson is as well, but he just really got us that win.
So the standings after 5 rounds, we have for the casters votes, we have Benny Keys on 53, miles in front, Dawson on 38, Rochelle on 30, which is an excellent effort for a 5-gamer, Laird 22, Tex 21 out of 2 games, Smith on 19, and then Rose, Scholl, Himmelberg, and a few others. Now, I did collate the listeners' votes that had been dropped in the chat, and you can still drop them in if you want to, but this is as at just before the cast. Dawson leading on 57, Keys on 49, Rochelle on 47, Tex on 41, Himmelberg on 31, Laird on 22. So, the same players are involved for both. Sorry.
Both
Both tallies.
The interesting thing is that there's probably about 8 or 9 players that you could consider for the 5 spots, and if you go through our 3 and the listeners' 5 votes as well, nearly all of them got mentioned. Probably about 8 different players probably got mentioned.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway, that's us done. Thank you everyone for sticking to us for 2 hours 20 minutes. Great stuff, everyone. Have a great rest of the evening. Enjoy your weeks. We got the Bulldogs in Ballarat next week, and we will be back next Sunday night to wrap it all up on the weekend wrap. Until then, stay safe and good night, everyone.
Night all.